Thanks, Julia. And thanks to all of you for being here to talk about training data and model accuracy. So here are some ideas that we have collected at Kili from the past few years, and that we would like to share with you, because we think they could have a massive impact in the way we build and we deploy AI, and we will do it in the next few years. So there is, to start, a very radical difference between software and AI. Software is made of code, whereas AI is made of both code and data. And in fact, AI is made of three things: code, computing power, and training data. Code, it's very easy. It's pretty easy. You can find almost all what you want open sourced on GitHub. So the very latest implementation of frameworks coming from publications of Google, of Facebook, of academics. Then you have the second building block for AI is computing power. And it's a bit the same story. Thanks to the GPU revolution, thanks to the cloud revolution, you can today have access to computing power for AI at a very decent price. And this computing power is doubling every 3 to 6 months. And then to build AI, you need training data. And we could think it's the same story, because thanks to the digital revolution, almost all the information of the world is stored digitally, so meaning readable by computers. But in fact, it's not as easy as it seems. Why? Because what works today in terms of AI is supervised learning. And supervised learning needs examples to be trained. And what is an example? It's on one side an image, and on the other side an information marked on the image. It was a bit what you were doing a few years ago when you were tagging your friends on Facebook. So you were taking pictures and placing bounding boxes around the faces of your friends. And doing this, you were creating those examples. So on one side the image, and on the other side the information tagged on the image, so that Facebook could use them to train their algorithms. And this is the reason why today they are very, very good in computer vision. And this is the same story for every one of us. So what it means is that today, data is really the new code of AI, and it's the new bottleneck, in fact, of AI. For instance, on this project, we worked on a few weeks ago to detect patterns in cells. On one side, we had a data scientist working on the model, on the algorithm, and it took him 2 days to collect, so to fetch some models from GitHub, to fine-tune them, to train them on the data. And all the performances were in a range of 1%. And on the other side, we had a team of radiologists, so specialists, working to create the data set. And it took them the equivalent of 12 man-months to annotate the data. And the impact of their work was 10 times bigger, so about 10% in the accuracy of the model. And so what it means is that today, it's really the way you create your data set, your training set, that makes or breaks your AI project. And this is the reason why data-centric AI, so managing the data to train your AI, is becoming a very active and very exciting research field. So what I want to do with you today is really simple. I want to share with you the two biggest challenges of this data-centric AI field, and to share with you some keys to overcome those challenges. So the first challenge is to have consistent data. So in what follows, I will take a very basic example on kitesurfer detection, because I love kitesurf. But what I'm going to say can work for any kind of machine learning use case, such as, for instance, detecting default, detecting targets, detecting products, detecting cancer cells, classifying emails, improving a chatbot, processing forms or contracts. But let's go back to my kitesurfer detection example. So let's say I want to detect some kitesurfers automatically on pictures. What I'm going to do to start is I will go to the beach with my camera, I will take a few hundred pictures, and then I will go back home and I will ask a few friends to help me label this data. So the first labeler, my first friend will produce this kind of labels. My second labeler will produce this kind of annotations. And my third labeler will produce this kind of annotation. So all of them are right in some way, but the issue is that they are not consistent. They annotated and they understood the concept of kitesurfer detection in a different way. And this inconsistency will hurt the performance of my model. What we estimated is that a 10% decrease in the accuracy of the annotation will impact from 2 to 5% the accuracy of the model. And these inconsistencies can be of many types, many kinds. It can be in terms of naming. So for instance, what is a kitesurfer? Is it just the person, or is it the person plus the kite? It can be in terms of position of the bounding box. It can be in terms of size of the bounding box, and so on and so forth. So how to tackle this? How to make sure that the annotation, that the labels are consistent? The first key is what we name the consensus. So the consensus is a metric that computes the agreement of the annotations produced by different labelers. So the way to compute it is pretty simple. I take one image, and instead of making it labeled by one person, I make it labeled by 2 people, and then I compare their work. And given the elasticity, so the sensitivity of the performance of the model to the quality of the annotation, very often it's much better to annotate less data, but with consensus, so 2 times, for instance, each image. It's much better than annotated more data, but without consensus. And once I've annotated my data using consensus, I can then filter out all the data, all the assets, all the images with a consensus lower than a threshold to keep only the very high quality annotation to train my model. The second key is to leverage the instructions. The instructions are a document that describes the way to create the annotation. And this document is shared across all the annotators. The way to leverage them is very simple. Once I've computed my consensus, I can then review the low consensus annotations, the low consensus assets, and decide which one, so which label, among the different labels produced by different annotators on the same image, so which label is the right one. And once I've chosen the right label, I document my decision in the instructions, and I share the updated version of the instructions with my labelers. And at the very beginning of an annotation project, I do this iteratively. So I make them annotating with consensus, then I review the low consensus assets, and then I update my instructions and share them and share the instructions with them, so that they align on the very same definition of what is a right annotation. The third key is to split tasks. Maybe some of you know the Solon paper, which is a paper published by that was published by the University of Stanford a few time ago. And in this paper, basically, they take the example of annotating this pretty complex task, which is summarizing a document. So at the beginning of the paper, they take the document, they send it to a few annotators, asking them to summarize it, and they get pretty bad results. In the second part of the document, they decide to split the summarization task into 3 subtasks, much more simple, and to reevaluate the quality of the work. The first subtask that they define is, instead of getting the whole document, they send only a paragraph to each annotator, and they ask him to say if or not it's possible to summarize the paragraph. The second subtask is, for those paragraphs that are said to be summarizable, please summarize them. And the third subtask is, for those paragraphs that have been summarized, please double check that they are shorter than the original paragraph, and please verify that the meaning is still the same. And when they split summarization into those 3 subtasks, what they get at the end of the day is much better results, and for a very, very decent price. And so my advice here is, when you have complex annotation tasks, split them. Try to split them, to chain them, and you will get much better results. The second challenge that I want to share with you is to have a complete data set. To go back on to my kitesurfer example, if I want to properly detect kitesurfers in any kind of environment, I would have to cover those scenarios. So people doing kitesurfers at the sunset, jumping, doing kitesurf in the sun, saying hello, falling down, and even doing kitesurf during the night. And so what it means is that to make sure that my model, once in production, will be able to cover and to work in all of these situations, I will have to make sure that in my data set covers all those scenarios. So I need to move from the concept of having a monolithic data set to curating my training set as a collection of scenarios. So how to do it? The first key is to slice the data. So what does it mean? Slicing the data means identifying in my data set slices or strata in the data where my model is systematically not performing, so underperforming. And then to be able to take some actions. So how to do it? It's pretty simple. What I will do is so once I've annotated my data, I will export the labels. I will train a first model with this data, and I will re-import the predictions of this model into Kili. And then I will be able to compute the accuracy or any kind of other performance metric on every asset, on every image. And then I will project this performance on different dimensions, such as the brightness of the image, or the sharpness of the images, or their size, and so on and so forth. And then I will be able to plot, so to visualize the evolution of the performance of the model as a function of those parameters. So for instance, the performance of the model as a function of the brightness of the image. And doing this, what I will see very clearly is that my model is not good on dark images. I will drill down, I will zoom on them, and then I will notice that all those images were taken during the night. And then I will face a decision. I will be able to make a decision, which is either to say, okay, does it make sense to detect eye suffer during the night? Because it's not, and so it doesn't make sense. And so it's a scenario that doesn't need to be covered by my model, and I can just delete it from my training set. On the other side, I can also say, okay, my model needs to be able to tackle it. And then I will launch a new annotation, a new data sourcing campaign and labeling campaign on this specific scenario to better cover it in my dataset. The second key to get complete data is to be able to iterate fast. One key success factor of the development of software over the last few years has been that it's very easy and it's very fast to iterate from the development of a new feature and its testing. Unfortunately, this is not the case for AI. It's pretty slow to iterate in the development of new models. It can take days, sometimes weeks, between the development of a new model and its testing, whereas for software development, it's just in a matter of minutes very often. And when doing data-centric AI, you constantly have to iterate between data sourcing, data annotation, model training, and data slicing. And so the way to do it efficiently is to be able to iterate fast. And this is the reason why in Kili, we provide AI at every step to accelerate the process. So for instance, when you annotate, instead of defining the border of an object at the pixel level, so pixel by pixel manually, you can just click on the object and then the border is created automatically. It takes just 1 second instead of a few minutes. And same thing when you slice data, you can leverage the smartness, the intelligence of the search. The third key is to update data. in the kitesurf world, the shape of the kites, of the boards, has changed a lot of times. Data is changing all the time. Logos, the shape of logos, changing. Every kind of data is changing over time. And so what it means is that when you push a model to production, the story is not finished, but you need to have a process to monitor the performance of your model and to update it on a regular basis. And the way to do it is pretty simple. It's to sample predictions from your model in production on a regular basis, then to import them onto platforms such as Kili, and to leverage the possibility to slice the data again. And so what you will be able to do is once you have imported the prediction of your model in Kili, you will annotate this data to create a ground truth. Then you will compute the agreement, so the accuracy, for instance, between your predictions, so the prediction of the models and the ground truth. You will project this performance metric on the different dimensions of your dataset, the brightness, the sharpness of the images. And then you will be able to study the evolution of this performance over time. And when observing a decrease, so a drift in the performance, you will be able to tackle it, as we said before, for instance, sourcing more data and annotating to better cover a scenario. To conclude, when it comes to model training, what we see is that very often it brings much more value to iterate on the data than to iterate on the model. And when you iterate on the data, when you build your data set, it's key to pay attention to the data consistency because it impacts a lot the performance of the models. This data set, this training set, needs to be seen not as a monolith, but as a collection of scenarios that needs to be covered to make sure that your model will be robust in production. And to do this iteratively, efficiently, you need to leverage a platform designed to do it, such, for instance, as Kili. Thanks a lot. If you have questions, I will be very pleased to try to answer them.